Well, hello and welcome. We've got week 5 here of the ZRL WTRL Racing League. It's week 5 of season 121-22. America West. Kate Bates joined by Dave Towle. And Dave, this bookends at the end of week 5. We started with APAC last night and we've gone all around the world in between. There's been some pretty exciting racing happening.
One of the best days in the history of the ZRL, Kate. I got to say, it has been phenomenal. I'll be honest with you, if it's just between us, our special group that we have here in the last time zone, that, the men's Premier League race that I did, I thought was a little disappointing, to tell you the truth, in the way that they raced the course. The women then followed up and really got after it and were super aggressive. And Julia Shalau was one of the real animators, and that was fun to watch. But racing today proved to me what Matt Stevens was saying. He made the comment, this course is fizzing over, and it sure was today. The sprints come 6 times, that bonus sprint. It's been critical. If you don't amass enough points through that sector throughout the race, you almost leave it too late at the end. We've seen some phenomenal finishes. So first off, Kate, I do want to say it is so good to be back with you, my friend. It's been a long, long time that we've been able to cover some racing together. So this is going to be a really fun evening for us here in America. And I guess good morning. What time is it in Australia?
It's the middle of the day, but likewise, Dave, it's awesome to be back on board with you. It has been a little bit of time between drinks. Nathan and Anna have been keeping me busy in the meantime, though.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what you say about this course because in APAC, they went hell for leather. And it was really interesting, actually, that the first sprint comes so quickly. And a lot of the people who were right up there and really competitive with the fastest through segment time in the first lap, well, by the end of lap 6, they weren't anywhere near that front bunch. So I think you do need to temper your effort a little bit, and there is definitely opportunity still for breakaways, even though on paper it's a sprinter's course.
Kate, this is what WTRL has been all about. I love your point because that first sprint is really early, 2.7K in, and then it's at the 7.3K repetition. That's the rhythm that we get out there. And as I said, there's a ton of points. We saw a rider, Siri Hildenan, earlier, who she ended up going executing a perfect plan to go out and get some fastest through segment and points early, and then turned it over to her teammates. So for some riders here, and that's one of the beautiful things about what WTRL is doing with fastest through segments, first across the line, and the finish line points, is it gives riders a lot of opportunity to be a part of their team's success. And to be honest, you can be a first quarter hero out here. Go out and rack up a bunch of points for your team and give a little bit of a house's money feel coming into the finish. Free things up a little bit. I don't even know if you have casinos in Australia or not.
Yes, we do.
Well, if you have a
We
gambling
certainly
problem,
do.
Nathan says.
No. It's. I don't know if you know where Macau is, Dave, but
Oh, yeah,
Nathan
sure.
does not
Yeah, yeah.
did not know where Macau is, and I told him
It's in
that
China.
it
I mean,
was
no, it's
it was where you could gamble. Lots of casinos in Macau. We do have a lot of probably too many casinos in Australia, actually. But it's I don't know. Aussies kind of we have the reputation, Dave. We bet on anything, like that you'd bet on chickens
kangaroo
racing or
boxing
whatever.
or what, right?
So yeah, yeah, that's a legitimate sport, I reckon.
Yeah.
We'll jump down. We need to jump down to take a look at the women soon. They will be out on course.
Nathan,
And again,
Nathan
that
just told me
course,
no kangaroo
um,
boxing because of PETA would not accept that. So we're going to pull that back. We're going to pull the reins in. Kate, we're going to have a fun day. Barbara Fazoli, here's a name we know well. We just saw ATP with Rachel Lieberman and company doing a really good job racing in America's East. Now it's time for America's West. This is a replay of the first sprint. It happened 2.7K into the race. And Kate, let's take a look at what happens out here. Dutch Diesel back at it in orange and blue.
oh boy. Dutch
Yeah, I'm
Diesel
hearing.
took it. Now they have been accelerating each week, haven't they? Dave, just getting stronger and stronger. There was quite a big gap then back to that bunch. You have to remember and remind the riders that unless they are trying to attack, the best way to go into any kind of sprint is to only win it by the amount you need to, which may be 1 centimetre, not necessarily 20 metres. So we've got live images again. Young Nickel is has a tiny gap. It's only 1 second. This will roar back toward her back wheel as they descend down here. They are over that 57-kilometre mark, but they're not jumping in the super tuck, which is interesting. Oh, there we have Van Houweling, and look at how, well, she literally howls past, doesn't she, in the super tuck? There's a lesson for young Nickel.
Well, it's fitting that one of the greatest minds in cycling, Molly Van Houweling, former world hour record holder, we had Liz Van Houweling, who was just moved on to the Riot team, directed by our colleague Anna Russell. And Liz Van Houweling has rapidly become one of the best sprinters in esports, Kate. Absolutely amazing. Now, I believe, we're still doing our research on that, but I believe that Molly Van Houweling is the sister-in-law of Liz. But obviously, the Van Houwelings have really got it going on out here. And Molly in the mix, she moved over to that Dutch Diesel team. They've got Janelle Yilla on this squad as well, the Canadian. We're going to take a look at the points now from that first sprint here. And it was, well, for fastest through segment as well, going to Torelli here of Dutch Diesel. That's Daniela Torelli, the Canadian here. Look at Dutch Diesel, Kate. I'll let you talk us through it, but they're obviously stacking some points up early.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very good tactic to go after those points pretty early. And you can see that the FTS is weighted. So it is a very good idea, especially early in the race, to see if you can get that fastest through segment and get those extra bonus points for it. You will be the freshest at the beginning of the race. It's something, Dave, we talked about quite a lot in APAC, because we've noticed over the weeks that there's been some sprinters who have really come into the fore, who it's not necessarily about power, but it's very much been about the strategy of the sprint and how 100%. They've executed it. And I think as all of these leagues progress, people are actually taking the time to practice, to learn, to really understand the different ways that you can sprint, not only to maximize your speed and get that FTS, but also get the first across the line. I think Dutch Diesel, if they keep doing this for a couple of laps, will really have a very, let's say, relaxed back end of the race, because it'll give them a lot of liberties to then go on attacks or work with other riders if they get in small breaks, because they will know that overall they're in a very dominant position from a points perspective.
So, Kate, when we look at it here now, the situation here becomes really, really interesting when you've got a team like Dutch Diesel. You start wondering what a rider like the Canadian Laura Thompson on that Broomwagon team, how are they going to try to crack the code out here? It looks like these two groups are going to merge back together. They're out on the second of 6 laps now. Again, just to paint the picture for you, there's a decent amount of climbing today, almost 500 meters, so getting pretty close to 1,500 feet. This race will be right around an hour. With the smaller field here, it's a little more work. The TSS for all our riders will be a little bit higher, so I think expect an hour of hard racing out here today. It's almost like you do these intervals between the sprints coming every 7.3K, and there's a cutoff that they added. We've been talking about this throughout the day, but this was a course that wouldn't have been possible to race on around 6 months ago. This opportunity opened up, and it's the first chance we've really had to bring a high level of racing out on this course. So we do look at a merging of these two groups together, like watching 2 bottles of ketchup turning into one.
I love your analogies, Dave. I'm here for your analogies. I'll come any day for that. You are right, though. It is pretty important that for those riders in the second group that it does just merge without it having to force too much, and they're absolutely then back in the race, because often you might end up off the back simply from kind of poor positioning rather than actually not being able to keep up. The men are about to start, so we will take a look at them as they roll out, and they, of course, have that first early intermediate sprint at 2.7K.
I want to go back to your comment, Kate, because I 100% agree that the Zwift craft is a term that I heard Nathan use first, but it really is the game playing element of Zwift. Is the joke that I made a long time ago, but it still resonates in a way, is that this is not an exercise contest, and these sprints are perfect examples. A lot of times today, Kate, the rider that has won the sprint has not necessarily. I mean, sometimes sure they're making huge watts and they just crush it, but more often than not, not, it's been their ability to time it, because you come into all of the sprinting today, whether it's the finish line where they just went through. So they're out on lap 1 proper right now. It's about 200 meters of the run in from the pens as you see the rider spawning and getting out on course now. So they are on the circuit. But Kate, getting the timing right and surfing the front of that group, much like you'd see riders going for the fastest through segment, need to do the same thing. It's not just getting out there and going as hard as you can. You have to tactically approach this. And the same thing with the sprinting. It's not just make as many watts as you can possibly do. It's about finding the right place in the group at the right time, and then just hopefully you've got the right power up as well. And we are using the classic 3 power ups out here. The van, we've seen obviously they're distributed evenly. You've got a random shot every time you go underneath the feather for lightening up your weight by 10%, and the helmet, which makes you more aerodynamic. And I think that's been the most desirable one to have today, actually, in the sprints and the finish, is that helmet, just kind of reducing your CDA a little bit, your frontal area.
I said to Nathan last night, I told him a story. I'll tell you today, while we're heading into the sprint. Before I do that, let's just take a look at the women's sprint that we have just seen happen, just to get a bit of an idea about how this is all rolling out. Kat Salthouse, gee, I like her as a rider. She has got sensational acceleration. I really like watching her race. So Thompson has gone early. Look at this acceleration from Thompson.
Wow. Holy
so
moly.
Young Nickel it was that had the lead there, but Thompson blew past Danny Torelli coming in second. Boyinger might have rolled her for third there. So good to see Thompson from Cadence getting those top points and breaking that up a little bit from DDC.
Kate, I don't know if you can read hieroglyphics if you took that in high school there in Australia, but the broom wagon team, no, they didn't offer it. I would have been game for sure. But so broom wagon is that team if you're looking on Zwift Power. And Laura Thompson, we were talking about Zwiftcraft and experience and how much of a difference it makes in the sprints. Well, she's only a level 17 Zwifter. So she's definitely someone who's quick on the uptake. She's picking up what they're putting down out there for sure. So watch out for Laura Thompson, the Canadian, today on Broomwagon. We'll get a chance to see how the teams. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kate.
No, please. We're coming into a sprint, so it's starting to heat up here. I'm never surprised when people duck off the front leading into sprints, Dave, but this is a very, very fast run-in.
Tough to do. Yeah.
It is tough to do.
It's been pretty rare that we've seen this end up as a successful effort. You can see they're just going to get caught on the bridge. So we've seen it get even closer than that, but it looks like this one is going to be 2 teammates here. Do they hold on, though? Not. Oof. Boy, we'll have to go to the photo finish camera, Kate.
Jeez. It doesn't surprise me early on in the race when they do have these really tight sprints, but we are noticing by the back end, everyone's a little bit fatigued and they're not quite as photo finishy. In saying that, we had some pretty cracker finishes in APAC yesterday. So a big lead from Dan Pedrosa. He hit out very early, but the timing of the power up from Heinlein, gee, he was so good last week, wasn't he? Or the week before. Yeah. It doesn't surprise me that he ducked over there. Great use of the power up. Where was Pedrosa's power up? Did he drop it earlier? Did he not want to use it? Curious about that.
Good question.
You might have missed where he dropped it earlier.
Hey, Kate, I see we've got a real great story joining us today. So on the OMG team now is Philippe Nystrom. Remember him from the Costa Rica squad that we had back in seasons 1, 2, and 3? Mm-hmm. Philippe has become a celebrity. Since we last saw him racing. Yes. So
he was always a celebrity to us.
Yes. Well, I like to think we discovered him, Kate. You're a star.
Yeah.
But we've always loved Philippe and his great attitude. I had a chance to meet him in person at Tulsa Tough, one of the biggest American criteriums that got started just as you were wrapping up your racing career here in the States, or your time in the
Yeah.
States, I should.
I never raced
Um,
it, but I certainly know a lot about it.
yeah, it's great. And Philippe was out there racing. He since has taken out his UCI cyclocross professional license and showed up at
Oh,
the World Cups and raced for Costa Rica. And it was a first. It caught a lot of attention as, we try to globalize cycling. And they announced that the Worlds are going to Rwanda for 2027. And I think that's super cool. And seeing athletes from nations like Costa Rica at a World Cup of cyclocross is also extremely cool if you're someone who's got a vision for the future and likes to see the sport
yeah.
globalize and bring more people into it. And I know, Kate, you are in that group. As Yeah, I mean, racing out of Australia, you've got to
Yeah.
understand more than others how hard it is for a Costa Rican to do what he's doing.
It is so cool. I love that. I love like kind of these trailblazers because we talk about a lot in terms of women, but it's equally as relevant with fellas. Is if you can't see it, you can't be it, and that goes not just for gender, but for ethnicity, for race, for skin color. It's all of it, and it's so good. We were talking off air, Dave, about what great things they're doing over at Legion for representation and
Yes.
diversity. And I think, it's so fantastic when I hear all of these stories. And it's something I love about the Olympics is you get this incredible diversity of nation and performer. Despite the overall medal tally, the bottom of the medal tally is the really interesting one where you get the interesting statistics. First ever medal for Papua New Guinea at the Olympics and things like
Yeah.
that. And you just know that they're history makers.
There's Philippe right up there. So, Kate, in my hotel at World Championships, I was lucky enough to join our friends at Zwift in Belgium, in Flanders. And my floor was the Eritrean team. It was basically
Oh,
me, and
cool.
the Eritrean mechanics were next to me, and the U23 rider who ended up on the podium was in the room on the other side of me. And I was like a little kid on Christmas every morning, waking up and having coffee with those guys. Um, and Eritrea is another one of those stories, right? Where you're like, what
I
is going
love
on?
it.
It's so special. I mean, to put a kid U23 rider onto the world championship podium in Flanders, I mean, that's as
Oh,
legit as it gets. It's giving me goosebumps right
yeah.
now because that's why I love this sport, Kate. And I think that's what probably got you as a young woman into it, or little girl, I should say.
It is.
You know,
Yeah.
something special
Yeah.
about
I
cycling.
mean, there's certainly like it really captures your imagination, doesn't it? And I think about it a lot when I'm looking at Zwift because you have this intersection of what I would call the lifers, people like me who ride a bike before they walk, really, and then are always involved in the sport. And then you have a lot of these athletes who may never have really identified as cyclists at all, but Zwift has given them the opportunity to really show their physicality. And they also bring a lot of new ideas to the sport, new tactics, new thoughts on how to approach things, where more traditionalists may never have thought about that. We'll take a quick look at the points while they're up. Pineland,
Hey, just
geez,
like yeah,
he's so good, isn't he? On the top there
yeah.
already.
Yeah, watch out for him again, Kate. I love your comments. I definitely. We've got a sprint coming up in about, let's call it, well, less than a K, about a little more than half a kilometer here. Let's see if Heinlein can do it again. So I feel like there's just so much to talk about in positive things around the sport right now. I was going to say that what cycling has brought to the world with the carbon fiber technology, and uh, you see the cross pollination between the sports out here. And, at 7.3K, I have a feeling I've got my odometer set wrong because the 9.9 is the sprint. I apologize.
Yeah.
2.7 and then
Yes.
9.9 for the sprint. So a little further out than I thought there. Sorry about that.
No.
That
Well,
was the
there's your
finish
boy
line that
Nystrom
they went.
sitting in. Yeah. So Nystrom, it's great that he's jumping in from cyclocross. He's probably using Zwift as quite a base of his training, but he must have to do quite a lot of skill training too
Yeah.
to have delved into cyclocross. It's something that you can't do if you've got just a big engine and don't have the skills to back it up.
You need to know how to ride in mud, and that they had a decent amount of that. One thing, Costa Rica is the home of a race called the Ruta de Conquistador, which I'm signing Nathan up for, actually. It's basically you're racing from the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean. I think they run it that way. It might even flip, actually, but racing across Costa Rica and plenty of mud down there. So I'm going to guess that a young Philippe Nystrom probably was out getting muddy on his bike a bit, and that would really, really help. He lives in Portland now, which also, but again, 1 hour effort, Kate, out here on Zwift, not that different in a power profile than a cyclocross race. It's go, go, go the entire time. You don't really get a break in a cross race, and you don't really get a break out here either. I mean, micro breaks, yes, but not really.
Yeah. They did a power test in women's road racing some years ago, bearing in mind that women's is a lot shorter than the men's. So in the men's traditional road races, there's a lot more dead time, but in the women's, it doesn't seem to happen like that. And they found that the most prolific winners had dozens and, hundreds of like 2 and 3 second accelerations within their power profiles. And they weren't consciously even realizing that that's the load and fatigue they were under. And they were often getting to the end of a race and saying, it wasn't that hard. I'm not sure why I'm so exhausted by the end of it. But that's what happens in Zwift, is you're constantly needing these tiny little spikes of power to maintain your position, to move up. Yes, sometimes there are these long sustained efforts, but that's, generally only if you're in a breakaway. Otherwise, it's super dynamic. And they really need to condition themselves for that, because quite frankly, it is exhausting. I mean, imagine getting on your trainer and doing 100 2-second sprints. You'd be pretty fried by the end of it. Now, this is the women, another sprint, and I think that Thompson might have muscled over the top there. I think she got over the top of Torelli.
You think so? That's Laura Thompson and Daniela Torelli. We'll have to go back and look. As a matter of fact, Nate, I don't know if we can watch that again or not. Yeah, thank you, Nathan. This is going to be interesting here. So these two women are really showing themselves to be the cream of the crop out here now. So Torelli there in the orange and blue jersey. I had her winning it, but Thompson coming through for ATP.
Whoa. It's
Cadence, I'm sorry. Yeah, Connolly for ATP, Thompson for Cadence there. Let's go back and rewind. Again, we talked about this with Nathan in the last broadcast. What you see here with your, that's a 3-way. Hi. Wow. Kate, you probably had a lot of photo finishes on the velodrome like that, I'd imagine.
Well, I tried never to have a photo finish.
Right. Well, Kate, there's no way looking at that you could fairly call a winner because of the fact of latency, and we've got racers all over North America. I'm wondering do we have anyone in this group further away? Sure we do, than North America. I see other flags, Japan, Sweden represented. But
well, I mean, look at the points. It's interesting because Thompson has now leapfrogged over Van Houweling into third on the points there, and splitting the difference for the Americans and Canadians. Boyinger still with that fastest through segment is getting the bulk of the points, and Torelli, but Thompson's on her way up.
Got to give CJ credit. I mean, really fighting on two fronts there, that fastest through segment. And at this point in the race, this would be a Martin question, but I'm going to guess that fastest through segment has been decided pretty early out here with the fresher legs, because I don't think you're seeing negative splits as far as the laps goes. It doesn't get faster at the end of this race, to tell you the truth, at least in general. Every race is its own story.
You're right. It's an interesting prospect to possibly do this. So yesterday on our ride, Dave, we had Michelle Ferris join us on our Chicks Who Ride Bike jaunt in the morning. And she was an Olympic silver medalist in the track sprint. She started one of the racing teams that predominantly races in APAC, Rave. And, as such a good sprinter herself, she's kind of imparted this wisdom amongst her team, where we're seeing all of a sudden a real rise of rave sprinters, where on paper they're not necessarily the best sprinter, but they're really honing the craft of how and when to sprint. And she kind of passed on some of those tips to the bunch ride yesterday morning, which was really cool. I think we'll have some riders out there giving it a crack and seeing what happens. But it is a very interesting prospect for where you start your sprint, and in fact how much you warm up. Now, if you can sit in and on and not really worry too much about the sprints early, there is no reason why you can't warm into a fastest through segment later on, but you have to be the kind of sprinter who can do it off your own back rather than needing the speed of the pack to do it, because as your power may increase, theirs may decrease. So it's a bit of a complicated picture. The team league standings are up on the Rivet Haze. They are quite a bit ahead at this point, 8 points ahead of OMG. They killed Kenny. Dirty Rascals Riot sitting in third there, pretty tight between second really and fourth. So a lot of podium shuffling going on. But on the Rivets seem to have a bit of an advantage at this stage, Dave.
Yeah, they've been dominant. I mean, this is the 5th race of the season, and you can see they've been perfect so far. Let's see if they can, because it looks like, oh my God, they killed Kenny, is stepping it up, to tell you the truth. And there's one of the reasons is that black, white, and orange jersey there is the team of John Heinlein, and he certainly has been impressive. 43 kilometers of racing, so these guys really just getting into it now, taking a look at the points that the individuals have earned so far. But look at how there's 4 riders from OMG here in that top 10. So running them down here, 34 points, and that's also some fastest through segment points there for John. 25 points for Amato, Johnson with 18, Van der Veen 17. You've got Hill at 15. And we work our way down. Those are the top 10 riders here that have scored so far. You take those points and add them together with the rest of your team. And we keep a tally, a running score, because there's a lot of points at the finish. 50 points for the winner. And we've got an attack. Next sprint coming up at 17K. So 17.1. It's a little far out. I don't know if I'd advise this right now. Just burning some matches.
Yeah, that hill, it's
there's so much momentum.
Hard, but that's the momentum over the top, and the ability for the bunch to whoosh back on is just such a massive advantage. We nearly saw it happen last night with Mark O'Brien in the men. He won APAC last week. He gave it another crack this week. Nearly had it, and he had a 14-second advantage over the top. He then got caught by the line. No, he still didn't. It looked close though. He got caught within 20 meters, 50 meters.
Yeah,
it was pretty close.
Nathan was saying he's become a real animator, a breakaway specialist in the APAC, and I didn't watch the race, but you like to see those moves be successful because it encourages more aggressive racing like that. Mark O'Brien, the rider that you're talking about, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
I'm going to have to watch for him for sure. That race occurs at 3:00 in the morning here in the States, so I'll have to go back and watch the replay.
Yeah. Probably not something you want to wake up for live.
You should be concerned if I'm watching that live. So, all right. That's the finish line. No points, but they do get a new power up as they come through, and already using it there. Someone throwing a van up. Trying to just freshen the legs a little. That seems like a misfire.
There. It does seem like a misfire, doesn't it? I was talking last night quite a lot about the timing of when people are dropping power-ups, and I haven't been able to test it yet. So I've had a bit of a dodgy back lately, Dave. So the only Zwifting I've been doing has been very elementary kind of coffee rides. But when I'm back firing, I really want to give it a go to drop the power-ups, kind of what may be traditionally considered as too early, and see what effect they actually have during a sprint rather than an attack. That's a bit, I don't think there's quite as much variance there, but I have a theory that you could drop it about 25 seconds out from the sprint to get that extra bit of acceleration and freshness coming into the sprint. But I have to try it. But there's my theory.
I feel like you and Anna Russell are forming this brain trust of the greatest thoughts in Zwift are coming from down under right now. You two are going to definitely be impacting the way people race and use their Zwift craft out here. Oh, man, I tell you what, Anna Russell came up quite a bit in our sock conversation earlier today. Kate, please tell me you wear socks when you're cycling.
Oh, I'm insulted you'd even need to ask. Of course I do. But,
Thank
you know,
you.
in
It's
Australia,
a perfect
typically
answer from you.
triathletes don't. If
Well,
you see someone not wearing socks, you assume they're a triathlete.
This is Northway here. This guy really has the goods. There's no question that Northway is a rider that should have alarm bells ringing back in that group, Kate. On the whole of it here, they need to worry about this guy, giving him 5 seconds. Now, he's going to pick up the points, the 10 points. Do you think this is a play for just that or even more? He's not coming back right now.
He didn't just sprint for a couple of seconds to get a gap. Even when the chasers were still at around the 3 to 4 watts per kg, he was pushing up to 8 and 9 for quite a significant period of time to establish the break. I actually think this is quite purposeful, and it's not just about the points. This is a good time to do it. The bunch at this point are almost thinking, all right, well, we won't get back for the points, so now we're just jockeying to get the next points, as it may happen, or that fastest through.
We haven't seen a breakaway, a long-range breakaway, even attempted, to tell you the truth. It's always been a play for the points as he puts the aero power up now, so reducing his CDA, or effectively just making himself a little more slippery. So this is going to be, he's at 6 seconds now, so I don't think there's any reason that he comes back to the group before the sprint, which, not, again, less than 1K, actually way less than 1K away.
Well, the interesting part here, he'll get there, Dave, by 3 or 4 seconds, but will he then sit up, or will he keep going while the others sit up after their sprint?
He sits up.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, he's up.
These right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that answered
and that makes sense. Yeah, it does. And it makes sense, to tell you the truth. Trying to break away, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's fun to talk about, but it's just not realistic. With this size group and the speed that they're carrying, a solo rider is just, I mean, you can see how, like we said, you give back 15 seconds in 1 kilometer when they're chasing you on a downhill. I mean, unless you're Ashton Lambie.
Yeah, oh my gosh. He is just unbelievable.
What a dude,
isn't he? I loved the podium photo from Worlds where he literally looks like he's half the size of Consoni and Ganna.
The Italian
standing
monsters.
In the middle of them. Yeah, it's like Asterix and Obelix. He's just this little character in the middle. It was great.
He is the Asterix without any doubt. I've loved Asterix and Obelix my entire life. We'll go back and look at Molly Van Houweling going full plaid right now. I think she holds on. Maybe not. Thompson's coming for her there in the green jersey. Laura Thompson's going to come up just a little short, as Daniela Torelli will make it 2 Dutch Diesels in the top 3 for the women, as they're well through the middle part of the course now. We'll score that one. Get your pencil out, as we've got some figuring to do. But it certainly looks like Dutch Diesel has stepped up out here. They are, in both of the Americas, Kate, becoming the dominant franchise.
Well, I don't need to get my calculator out. I'm going to rely on Nathan for that one. Although I was tempted. I was trying to figure that one out in my head. I'm looking at Thompson's powers. She is every lap getting stronger. Her powers are getting higher every lap. It's almost like she didn't warm up super hard, knowing that this is, quite an intense race and she could really come to the fore in the back end of it, which is fantastic to see. I'm also really happy to see Joy Connolly up there in the mix, because if you just look at prior performance around watt delivery and output, Joy Connolly has such a big highlighter over her name, but she has had a few up and down performances where you can tell she's not necessarily in the prime of her season compared to some of the other really consistent seasons we've seen. But gee, she's good. I really enjoy her style of racing. She can sprint.
I do as
yeah,
well.
She sure can.
Yeah. Absolutely a finisher. That's Joy right up on the front for ATP. Absolutely agree with you, Kate. That's a rider it's fun to support. She's a level 40 Zwifter. She can make over 11 watts per kilo for 15 seconds, too. That puts her
Oh,
into monster mode.
boy. Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't it? And I mean, the other one, Laura Thompson's close at 10.8, but they're huge numbers. And I keep seeing Laura push really high into that 10 to 11 to 12 mark throughout the back end of all of those sprints. So it's quite cool to watch, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Hey, have you figured out, Kate, the Dutch diesel? So I made a guess with Nathan last week that it was a
Mm.
coffee reference, right? The Dutch love their coffee, their cafe, and all of that, right?
Oh,
And diesel sort of goes with
mm.
coffee too. But we're trying to figure out that's actually a good thing to Google while we're have a little bit of a moment here in the middle part of the race. See if maybe it's a brand or
Yeah.
just a name, because no riders on the team are Dutch. I haven't seen a Dutch rider yet.
No. I mean, although it could be a reference to like their trains. They've got
Sure.
like locomotives um, that kind of go pretty hard and pretty fast all day, those
I
locomotives.
wonder
It
if
might be something about that. I don't know.
it
Can
could
we
be
Google
some
it?
kind of
Do
a
you think it's
yeah.
Googleable?
Well, you're right on Dutch diesel trains and Dutch diesel locomotives. I think that's what this is. 100%, Kate. You are a smart cookie. Um,
No,
Dutch
I just spend too
diesel.
much time looking into Zwift team names. I need to get out
No,
more,
but
maybe.
if you did look yourself, you'd see that they are some really badass trains that you would want
Oh.
to name your team after. As a matter of fact, they're like monster trains. Uh, the Dutch Railways intercity trains, they're refurbished. They're extremely unique in styling. All right. Well,
Mm.
that answers that, Nathan.
Well,
Going back to the men's race.
right. Oh, look at them in the super tuck.
No,
They
we got
are
it, Nathan.
certainly
It's
moving pretty quick. Well, I've actually just found a little ditty that I will tell you when they're not flying along. Nystrom's sitting nice and comfortably up the front. I seem to see his name pop up every time now that you've mentioned him. Dave, it's like that bias when you see a red car, then you only ever see a red car. But John Heinlein, he's got quite a big points advantage already. He's sprinting 2 weeks ago, blew my mind. He was absolutely sensational. It might have been 3 weeks ago, but earlier on in this season, I was just blown away by his ability to just generate these monster numbers.
It's interesting to see, though, when you look at how these points are being distributed, things are changing a little bit on this
Mm.
leaderboard. I'm impressed here. We're seeing some teams really fighting back right now. This is far from decided today, as the guys are just at the midpoint of this race. Kate, this is going
Yeah,
to be interesting here.
I like David Amato for the move up. He has been almost quite stealthily moving up on that points tally. And there are, of course, many ways to get points in these events. But as commentators, we often don't even barely see the guys who end up doing quite well on the points tally because they're not the ones that are first over the line. And they're not the ones, even when they go fastest through segment or thereabouts, they can do that from mid pack and still not be up there in that one or two we're calling across the line. So it's
What
always
is the
interesting when
flag?
the points charts come out.
Kate, the flag next to David's
Uh,
name there, is that South Korea? I think it might be.
it
And
it does look to me, yes. Although they're very
I'm looking
small,
at very
aren't they?
small. Yeah, I was going to say
Yes.
if it was
Oh, look,
larger, I might have a better idea.
Nathan and I called a Singaporean a Polish fellow the other day, which didn't go down too well. We had to cry defence at the fact that the flags are so
Too
tiny
small.
that
Yes.
yeah, that you can
Yes.
miss the details.
Yeah, I could see that happening with the Mexican and Italian flags as well. The only difference is that
Yeah,
eagle, right, in the Mexican one
yeah,
versus Spanish, right? Well, there's John moving up, John Heinlein the third. I'd like to meet John Heinlein the second, and
yeah. What
and
about
see
the original
see
John
where this guy
Heinlein?
came from, right? The DNA.
We'll put that on Nathan's Google list as well.
So if Nathan was a real professional TV producer, he'd pop up with John Heinlein the second, camera in camera. Right?
Yeah, for a live cross.
I do want to say that it is such a pleasure to have Nathan with us all day, and then to have his talents when he can produce for us, Kate. It's just cool. It really is. The skill level. As I've spent more time commentating on these events, you really start to realize the subtle things that he does that are so much better. I mean, I saw this great thing about the Grateful Dead. I retweeted it today, where their Billy Graham, who was their promoter, said they're not the best at what they do. They're the only ones at what they do. And I think Nathan gets that credit from me.
Yeah, I think we can give him that too. I made him multitask last
Don't give
night,
him a big head or anything.
while doing it all. And he managed that. I mean, we got a bit distracted a few times and had some random conversations, but that's kind of goes with the territory, right?
I heard the Muppets came up. You guys were all over the shop. Yes. So we're back with Philippe. So Philippe has worked so hard. He's got a really cool story too about recovery that he tells happily, and so that others can hear that story. Right, Kate? If you're, as they say, if you're going through hell, keep going. Don't stop.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Absolutely.
And then you end up here racing in the front end in the front group. So, Philippe, you really are an inspiring person here, but he's going to have to deal with the melee right now. This is savage out here, Kate, as we've got coming into another sprint. And as we're about 100 meters away, this could go 4 wide. Oh, man. But it's, oh, my God, they killed Kenny and John Heinlein. Again, Heinlein is a machine. Ooh. What a machine.
He just muscles over the top. That was like a little bit sassy, because he muscled over the top, and he almost kind of then just sat up. He was almost like,
that was a how you like me now. How you like me now sprint, right?
Yeah. And in the Zwift world, you can't use facial expressions to portray that. So you've got to get your avatar to do it. You did. So I taught Nathan a new term last night, Dave, double clipping. Like, so you just stop pedal, like feet out of pedals. And that's kind of what he did. We generally use it though when they're out the back. Foot down. Oh, I don't know about this foot down business, Dave. I won't put you in the middle of that.
That sounds very Tomac mountain bike racing to me. Only a mountain bike racer's dragging a foot through a corner. Actually, It's happened in road racing. I've seen some Belgian days where you have to take a foot out just to survive, right? You know the racing's not going well when you're dragging a foot. All right, so back with the front group here. Boy, so Kate, this has gone by pretty quickly. This is not going to even be 56 minutes of racing for these guys today.
Wow.
Big group.
It's a longer race than a lot of these Zwift races have been, but actually this season they have been very much increasing that and putting on longer races. Last season we had a few kind of 30 to 40 minute races, which is a very different dynamic yet again, but they are absolutely hoofing it along to get well within that hour, this group. And if you just kind of put your eyes down these average powers, they are actually taking the time to recover in between the efforts. They are not pushing the limit at all, which just kind of reinforces the importance of the sprint. No, it's not. And I think when you have to sprint so often, it does change the way that the race does play out.
Well, I agree. Every race has a rhythm to it, and this course has maybe the perfect rhythm, to tell you the truth. I don't know if I'd call it a world championship course. It's just not quite hard enough, but it's a great course for what we're doing here with ZRL. World championship, Kate, I think you need a little more climbing, to be honest. As a sprinter, you're going to disagree.
Has the course been announced for world championships yet?
Yeah, it's New York, a variation at Central Park.
I did see that, yeah.
So that's a hard course.
About that? Yeah.
Yeah, it might be the perfect world championship course, to tell you the truth. Charlie Eisendorf really knows what he's doing, and I love that course selection. I think a lot of
Well,
people do.
we talked quite a lot about how the Australians are choosing the team for that.
Sprint,
Let's take a look at this sprint. Leah Thompson, Laura Thompson,
Thompson.
she's just
Oh, she's
muscling,
going to get
but
pumped.
Joy Connolly,
Joy, right on
Connolly's found
cue.
her legs.
Just showed us what 11.1 watts of power looks like. Is even more than that?
Yeah.
Connolly, Joy, great job.
Well, she's got a good setup too. She's not on the Tron. She's got the disc. She's got the aero helmet. She's got a really good setup.
So there was just an event in San Francisco. I was lucky enough to announce. Did you do the San Francisco Grand Prix in your career, Kate? It was
No,
2
it
years.
actually wasn't on. Yeah.
Yeah,
In
they
my
did have a
little
women's
time over
edition
there.
finally, but it was one of the greatest races in American history, and they have some unbelievably steep climbs. Taylor and Fillmore, the Red Bull Bay climb is a classic event, and Sue Lynn Holt, racing with us on the Alto Velo racing team, was third place on the podium there. Thanks, Whitney. Whitney was the Belgian waffle rider that we were talking about earlier, previous broadcast, Kate. She won the Hard Woman's Award at the BWR, so she's given some props to one of the Alto Velo riders. Alto Velo, part of that very strong Northern California Bay Area women's cycling scene that back in the day when you were here in the States, most of our top teams were based Webcor, Tibco. All those teams had a home in the Bay Area.
It is certainly a good part of the world to be based as a bike rider. We'll take a quick look over to the men's race because there has been an attack over the climb. We've talked about whether this is indeed a good move after Mark O'Brien tried and only just failed to do it. So Peter Mogg was the one that's on the march there. This is kind of if you get to this corner with a decent gap, you might have a chance, but he's been caught because 3 seconds he went over the top there, Peter Mogg. That is just not a big enough gap.
And Kate, with the way that John Heinlein has been really dominating these sprints, it puts some pressure on the other teams that they probably weren't looking forward to having to chase back Mogg here. But our next sprint coming up for the guys at 31.5K in.
It is definitely a noticeably smaller bunch at this point. Yeah, baby. Hi, Dave. There's a direct shout out to you, Dave.
We definitely, this community is strong. And Kate, next time we get you over to the States, we're going to get Nathan up to Belgian Waffle Ride in San Diego. Let's invite your whole family over. We're going to get this COVID thing behind us. We'll get you over here.
That could be a whole lot of fun. I'll bring some caramello koalas for you too, Dave. I'll introduce you.
Oh, that'd be perfect. Hey, and your little girls. Yeah, I'm in. And Nathan said, could he get some too, please? Kate, your little girls would love the States, I think.
Oh, I think we could have some good adventures with them. They will certainly possibly eat half of the caramello koalas in transit.
Before you even get off.
I might have to put them in the hole to make sure they're safe and sound. I can tell you that a lot of Australians are, we've kind of been trapped in Australia, Dave. I don't know if you realise that. We have not been allowed to leave. And so I think there's a lot of Australians that are just dreaming of being able to go on such adventures and take their families away.
And I would have to think, just because of the way media works, you see a lot of America on TV, right? When you're in Australia?
You do, yeah. Oh,
there you
Whitney.
Go. Woo! That's exactly what I was talking about. Nice job, Nathan. That's some producing for you. So that was exactly it. That's why you tag us on social media, folks. As a matter of fact, Kate, isn't it great when you learn more about riders? Maud LaRue has been one for me recently. She's in South Africa, and because of social media, I've been able to get a better feel for what she's all about. And it is extremely cool to see another breakthrough rider. Let's go back and pick up the women's race. They're on the climb here. They got about
it's a second to last
9K.
climb.
Daniela Torelli from Dutch Diesel on top of the leaderboard, and that's really based on her being so efficient in both the fastest across the line and fastest through segment, 63 points. Laura Thompson. So 2 Canadians having an outstanding ride up till this point, 48 points there. As you combine points here for the riders, we'll take that even further and combine it with their team to see how things are going. You've got CJ Boyinger there with 45 points, Molly Van Houweling 34, Sulin Holt with 17. Boy, this is aggressive, though. I'm going to turn our attention back to the racing here. They are really having at it right now here, Kate Bates.
Well, we're coming really down to the pointy end, and so they know that if they can just break that band a little bit, then that's where you can start seeing really good counterattacks. I think a lot of the attacks that happen on this penultimate lap are often just setups for other people in their team who are just waiting in the wings to go on the march. But we've certainly seen these powers increase, haven't they? And it looks like Connolly's been jettisoned out the back there, which is
she's going to get back
in, considering her power. She'll get back in, but they know that they've been able to do that once. I dare say they'll do that to her again on the next climb.
Couldn't agree more. That it's certainly taking a look. So the women are coming up on 1 lap to go. We're going to jump back in with the men as they're at about, let's call it 2 laps, 13K to go. Oh my God. These guys have been killing it. Another sprint that we're witnessing here. 10 points as oh my God is right. It looks like they're going to go 1-2 over the line. So Philippe Nystrom getting up there. Well done, Philippe. John Heinlein also there. Let's see how that one scores. But looks like, oh my God, they killed Kenny. Having a great ride today, the team in orange, white, and black. We're going to look at a replay here, Kate.
The power-ups, again, I think being dropped pretty late in the piece. Although, in saying that, the OMG guys are dropping them earlier because they're running out by the time they cross the line. Juricic certainly took the points there. Great to see Nystrom up there as well. He's a very dynamic sprinter. He's very snappy when it comes to it. Maybe not the same raw horsepower as John Heinlein, the third. Let's not forget that 3. But, he certainly knows how to mix it up. This group has gotten a bit smaller since the beginning of the race, but it is still a very big group. And I cannot see any kind of glory attacks working at this point in the race.
Yeah, the size of the group really is discouraging if you are a one solo rider. There's just so much. This is our man, Michael Sweet here. Big fan of Michael. Going back to what you were saying, it's going to be so tough. I don't know. What do you think Anna Russell would make of this, Kate?
I actually saw a social media post from Anna, and she said, I made the effort essentially of everything matching, and nobody even complimented me on it, and I thought that was very funny. But I think he looks kind of cool.
I was going to say this character almost looks like he's smoking a cigarette outside of a newsstand right now.
Yes, he looks like he needs to have a baguette in his pocket or something.
Yes, and a corked bottle of wine, right?
Yes, strapped onto his top tube.
Yes, with some old leather straps holding it onto his top tube.
Exactly.
All right,
maybe
that's
something they can add in.
I'm sure they've got a game engineer working on that as we speak, Kate. They monitor our conversations, I'm sure. So going back then to 33K into, so they're at 10K to go now. And I want to go back to your point about the size of the group. The other thing I think is noteworthy, if you haven't been dropped now, odds are pretty good that you're going to make it to the finish in this group. You've survived the worst that they've had to, that you've been given it as good as you're getting it, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, this is kind of the calm before the storm now. And you can see their powers are dropping a little bit. If they're at the front, they're working a little bit harder, but they are definitely kind of getting ready for what is to come. They'll go up the climb, and then they're on that final lap. So everything is about to really, every move now can have a little bit more impact than it may have had in that first or second lap.
Yeah, agreed. As we take a look at the guys here, they've got one more sprint before they move into the finale mode again. So it's so heavily back weighted with points. Actually, now that I say that, that's not really true. Yes, there's a ton of points at the end, 50 for the winner, 40 for second, 35 for third on down. But the bonus points out here of what have really made the racing so exciting throughout the day. Let's take a last look at points here now, or a quick look, I should say, as John Heinlein has just been crushing it there with 39 points collected just in first across the line. And looks like the Fred AF team right now trying to get something organized here up near the front of the race as they're organizing a jailbreak, Kate, is what they're doing. It looks like we got a bit of a problem here for some of the other teams. We haven't seen this mix yet.
I just think it's a waste of energy. I mean, I really encourage attacks and aggressiveness and people giving it a go at times when people like me might say it's not great timing and they pull it off and, then they get to turn around and say, don't listen to her.
Not great timing, huh?
Annemiek van Vleuten gets me all the time on that one.
Let's go right in.
Oh, she's gone a bit early.
No, and you know what? Nathan and I have had that conversation probably close to 10,000 times now. This is going to be Laura Thompson here for the sprint. The penultimate sprint out here, as this is Thompson, but coming over the top is Sue Lynn Holt. I believe that's Sue Lynn Holt, and this was the woman we were just talking about, right on cue after her Red Bull Bay Area performance, getting on the podium there at the hill climb. She's on fire right now. Way to go, Sue Lynn.
On hills that are that steep in San Fran,
it's all power.
It's all power. I mean, yes, if you're lighter and produce power, it's fantastic, but there's a lot of climbers who don't go well up those sorts of climbs because
like your classics type
power.
climber.
Yeah, exactly. It goes a long way. So she's obviously got a whole lot of power in her arsenal. Might have taken a bit out of her though. So if she can just get back onto the wheel as quickly as possible and allow herself to recover, because those kind of efforts, if you do, a tiny gap opens up at the back, it can be quite disastrous.
Yeah, attentive was a word that you used earlier and really critical now. Just can't afford to mess around, let any kind of gaps open. Boy, DDC, the team in orange and blue here, Dutch Diesel, they look phenomenal. No question. Let's see what we've got. Sue Lynn Holt puts her name right into the conversation, though, after that last sprint. Certainly going to be a rider to watch. Joy Connolly did get back into this group. I'm looking around. Daniela Torelli is here. She, Kat Salthouse also, Molly Van Houweling, a lot of big names still in this group, Kate, as they're getting right down to the business end. They're at, let's call it 3.5K until this one is done and dusted. Let's see if anybody wants to make a run at it. I'm with you. I wouldn't. That's for sure. You got to trust in your sprint at this point. But you never know what's going to happen here.
No, I think sometimes if you are sure that you're not going to have a great result in the sprint because you're not a sprinter, then you have absolutely nothing to lose, even if they're low odds that you may stay away in that kind of attack. Why wouldn't you give it a go? You literally have absolutely nothing to lose. And we did see in APAC that teams were doing a really good job. Like the Rave team did a great job of leading out. Even though there was a rider that was away at the finish, Lisa Jacob, they did a really great group of leading out their sprinters to maximise the points afterwards. And for Rave, it wasn't worth them chasing Lisa Jacob and then fatiguing themselves before that sprint. So there's that opportunity as well, that it's when people are watching you attack, they do have to consider in a moment, are they worth chasing? Not can we get her back or can we not? But at what cost is that going to come?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to look too is that this is a team sport and the points are about combined team effort. So you don't have to win this race to win the day for your team. And and that's where a rider can catch a break and maybe slip through the cracks out here and find an outstanding individual win. But with this group, the way that they're locked and loaded now, I don't think they're going to give an inch. But I would go back and reference what you were saying about, look, if you have no chance in the sprint, why not give it a go? The other thing, if you have teammates, is you might help them out a little bit, take some pressure off them, forcing the other teams to chase, and maybe they can surf on the back of that chase and use that to their advantage for the finale. So there can be, we're moving chess pieces around on a Machiavellian chessboard right now, Kate, and there can be some efforts made by like DDC. They might have a rider attack to put the rest of the group under pressure to help out their team for the sprint.
Yeah,
I don't think so, though.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, I think that there's only a handful of riders in here who could really make a break for it. But we are still seeing a few duck off the back. We might jump over to the men's final sprint, but we are pretty close for the women's run-in. So we'll stick here for the moment and get a replay of that. Kat Salthouse is the one pushing the pace as they go up toward the top of this climb.
Here we go.
She's a very good sprinter. For all intents and purposes, Kat Salthouse may have just been climbing up front to make sure when the move was made, she didn't end up too far back. She was on the move earlier, Dave. She obviously has identified this part in the race as a real pressure point. She's making a bit of damage, but actually there's quite a few that are still within reaching distance.
This is
there,
interesting,
including Laura Thompson.
So, Kate, though, this isn't one solo rider with 7 seconds. This is a group of 4. They could very well stay away. This is completely different because if you look at it, there's not that many riders chasing that. Oh, yeah, this could be gone. I think we might have seen a selection. That's very surprising, but we're watching a selection happening right here, right now.
I'm going to throw it out there, Dave, though. Who on earth would ride with Laura Thompson at this point?
Well,
she is just
but if you think about it,
them in the sprint.
But you know what? If I had 3 riders with Thompson, I know that I could collect enough points around her. And Dutch Diesel's loving this. This is not they might not win the race. As a matter of fact, they probably don't. But, well, I wouldn't even say that. This is ideal for Dutch Diesel right now. They're going to get 3 in the top 5. You can't really beat those points. It's so top-heavy, 50, 40, 35. So even if they don't win this race, they're going to win the day.
Yeah,
Thompson,
I can see that. That was a very traditional comment from me, thinking only about the first over the line at the finish and not really looking at the big picture. So I'll pull myself back into line with that comment next time.
Yeah, I had to say something. I felt like I had to.
They're in a plum position, Dutch Diesel. Oh,
but you're right, though. They're
I've
probably
been a
not
traditional cyclist for a long time, so
exactly. And the glory of winning the race will always be, in my mind, there's no way to get past that, the feeling of going over the line first. So will the rider in green, that's the Canadian, Laura Thompson here, obviously outnumbered as DDC's got riders all over. Is that Joy Connolly as well, the other rider here? Sorry, she was dropped. I apologize.
She is
it's
the
young
one
Nickel.
that could
It's
really
young Nickel who started this whole thing. Here we go. And Dutch Diesel hits out. Thompson going to try to hold that wheel. Both throwing the Aero power up into the mix, and Thompson's going to come just short. Molly Van Howlen for the win.
The timing. Thompson was accelerating at a much higher rate, but she just didn't. Van Howlen got the jump on her. So look at me. That makes my comment even worse, doesn't it? Heavens. Brilliant job by Van Howlen and the Dutch Diesel cycling ladies, because that was pretty perfectly
Swiftcraft.
executed.
That's
it was. It was
Molly.
this moment. The jump. Yeah, she really
caught her
a little.
Caught her on her heels, and by the time Thompson was able to respond, it was just 2 seconds too late. But it's that small window that you have out there. So Molly's really showing her experience in esports here on Zwift. Way to go, Molly Van Houweling and Dutch Diesel. I think that ought to be enough. Let's go back in with the men as they're at about 2.5K to the finish here.
Well, there'll be a little bit of a different dynamic for the men at the finish with a much bigger group, but we saw that the women forced that gap over the top of that climb at the very back end of that. So will the men be looking to do the same? Somebody will attack. It's just whether they will even be allowed to go a second or two. But Heinlein has shown so far that he's the dominant sprinter out there. And if he can come to the line without too much pressure in his legs, I don't want to jinx him like I just did to Thompson. But look, I'd be watching him if I were the other riders. I'll say that. Sorry in advance, John. So they're coming up on the climb here. They're nearly at the top, and this is where the action actually can really start happening, because once they crest over and they turn left, this is absolutely the run in to the final. A lot of them will get quick enough that they'll jump into that super tuck and take a bit of pressure off the legs. This is really where they can start positioning for the sprint.
I'm looking at OTR Hayes here. They've been so good all year long, and they've got Glenn Kempton and Graham Hill on this team. Kempton from New Zealand, Graham Hill, a Canadian. And when you look at it, 14.8 watts per kilo for Kempton. OTR Hayes has got to be revving things up right now. Here goes Mog. Oh, my God, has had a tremendous day. Dropping down into a super tuck, and that's that. Nothing more to it. Up and out of it now, getting back on the gear as they're coming up on 1K to go. This is just the opener. This is just the appetizer for the sprint, as they're going to come over the top of this, you have to think. Rain coming down cats and dogs right now, coming down koalas and kangaroos right now as we're ready to bring them on home.
Well, Peter Mogg has been right up in the action and showing that he's got a bit of tenacity out there today. But the names that we have seen so far, Heinlein has got to be at the top of the list. Nystrom has been moving his way up the chart. Mulligan has had a few really good digs. Mogg has had a few really good digs. This is not, I wouldn't call them a totally fresh bunch here, but Dave Juricic in the last one, he really stepped up. They've opened up pretty early for this sprint.
And they've opened up the sprint, so here we go. Let's see who's going to take this. They're getting a little bit of separation. Are they going to close it? And there it is. Well, David getting it done. Wow. Amada there. That was phenomenal. But sprinting in the dark as they come across the line. Don't see that often. And what an impressive finish for David Amato. We were talking about him earlier. Rider representing South Korea.
Yeah, that was.
It looks like a hurricane is hitting Watopia.
It does, doesn't it? People feeling very comfortable in their pain caves. But Amato, we talked about earlier how he just hides in there and he just keeps getting points. He's done it again. He literally weaves through the middle of the pack under notice, but his acceleration is tremendous.
You can see moving from second right now, and yeah, this was a command performance by David Amato. Look how deep in the group he is. I mean, he's 12 riders back when we really pick him up here, like deep in the middle of the group. So yeah, I'd say he's about a dozen riders back. You can see him starting to move through in the red jersey there. Now he's moved up. One rider left to get around there, and that's Juricic.
He just smoked them, didn't he?
Yeah, that was awesome. Really was. Oh my God, they killed Kenny.
In second or third, maybe.
I have to think that, oh my God, they killed Kenny has done enough out here today.
They have done a lot out there today. I mean, for all the different times, Dave, you can talk about what these courses can produce in terms of will they be attacking or will they kind of just cruise around and waste the opportunity. Today was a bit of an in-between, but it was exciting. And as we predicted, by the end of the race, the people sprinting were quite a different cohort than at the beginning of the race.
Yeah, by the time you get to that final sprint, you've been through the ringer, that's for sure, with 6 bonus sprints. There's got to be an issue of how much fuel is left in the tank there when they hit out, but plenty for Amato. He was not on fumes. That was full gas as he came across the line. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the results from a great day of racing. I think we'll start with the women's A's. Actually, I think the women's actually had B's to start with, and it was Molly Van Houweling taking the win for the Dutch Diesel team. Laura Thompson for Cadence in second. It's Kate Youngnickel who initiated that last split for the Altavelo Tunitas team. And Sue Lynn Holtz, a good job by Altavelo today, getting 2 riders up in the top 4. Andy Smith in 5th, and then a lot of Dutch Diesel here as Andy Smith, then Diane Mitchell-Prey, Daniela Torelli, who was one of the top points gatherers today. Kat Salthouse ends up in 8th for ATP Racing Vespid. It's Gabrielle Zax in 9th, as Altavelo Tunitas has 4 in the top 10, with Jennifer Steele, the Canadian, rounding out our women's B's top 10 in the America's West Division 1. That was an awesome race, ladies. Back to you, Kate.
Pretty tightly held. So let's take a look at the C's. We've got Christy Martin for the Revo Musketeers, and she won with a little bit of a break back to Brittany Keskinen for the GSC Queen Bee Coalition. In third, we've got Tammy Taylor from DDC Atomic Kittens. Whitney Stidham in 4th for DDC Atomic Kittens. Summertime, and Sarah Northway taking 5th and 6th. So that 4 of those DDC riders coming in there together. Then it's back to a herd of misfit meerkats with Marcy Varley in 7th, Bria Fallon in 8th, Carrie Bartlett in 9th, and Claire Babcock in 10th.
Looks like a solo win there. So that's going to do it for our women here on round 5 of WTRL's ZRL 2021-22 Season 1. Let's take a look at the men now and our mixed men's A's with David Amato taking the win for On the Rivet Rush. It's Isaac Jurisic for Oh My God, They Killed Kenny, ending up in the 2nd spot. John Vanderveen, Dirty Rascals Riot, his team in 3rd. John Heinlein. The 3rd was exceptional, ending up in 4th. He'll collect the chocolate medal, but he earned so many points for the team. He was a difference maker, no doubt, for Oh My God, They Killed Kenny. Fred AF, represented now with 2 riders. In 5th is Karsten Ivany. In 6th is London Freiberg. Philippe Nystrom, great job, Philippe. Fun to talk about Philippe today as the Oh My God, They Killed Kenny rider from Costa Rica ends up in 7th. It's going to be Ian Mulligan for the Fred AF team. I'm sure he'd like another chance at it. Dan Pedroza in 9th for the Oh My God, They Killed Kenny team. And then Henry Shee for Evo Sonic Boom in 10th. That's your men's mixed A's.
All right, let's take a look at the men's mixed B's. We've got Brian Diddy for TFC Pickle Juice, yet to try that, I might add, taking the win. Brian Larson for Red Peloton B in 2nd. Vinko Poldugavorok, I don't know that I got that, I apologise, Vinko. ATP Racing Krypton in 3rd. Jed Schneider in 4th. Dr. Will Barr. In 5th, we've got Scott Adams from On the Rivet TWSS. In 6th, John Meals from Pickle Juice. In 7th, Tofu Smuggler. I think that's funnier than the team names. KRT Big Timbers there. We've got Matt Thompson in 8th from On the Rivet. On the Rivet again in 9th with Kevin Frudd, and Darren Boyd coming in 10th with On the Rivet Zeal Breakers.
Tofu Smuggler. I love it. All right, Eric Kuhn, men's mixed C's for OTR Forest. They went 1-2 today with Felix Albel there in 2nd. Eric Holmland for Dirty Rascals Affogato. Oh boy, it's about time for an Affogato. As some Canadians doing a great job today. Way to Canuck up as Egan Landy in 4th. Judd Dewling 5th. Adam Drews for Dirty, I should say Zed Sun Spot for Judd. Adam Drews in 6th for Dirty Rascals Affogato. It's the BPCC Badges of Honor. Sam McKenna there out of the United Kingdom in 7th. Kurt Sindelar for ATP Racing Ethel in 8th. And Torin McLeod, along with his teammate on Dirty Rascals Havoc, Skip Castro, round out our top 10 for our men's mixed C's out of the Americas West, Division 1. Back to you, Kate, for the D's.
All right, let's take a look at this. We've got Tosin Akinmasuro from Cryogen Mount Lemon taking the win. He was 6 seconds ahead, solo break ahead of Corey Bellinger for the Dirty Rascals diaper changes. His teammates chasing there, Tyler Kerr in third and Matthew Ferrier in fourth. Scott Urista coming in fifth for Cryogen Mount Lemon. We've got Matthew Kappelman in sixth from the Dirty Rascals diaper changes. Eric Newitt from the Herd of Powerful Pronghorns in seventh. Dan Gibbison in eighth, also from the Pronghorns. Bishan Singh coming in ninth from ISRT Bahubali. And 10th, we've got Scott Whitney from the Pronghorns. The Pronghorns had a great day, as did the diaper changes out there, stacking that quite a number, Dave, of these races ended up with small gaps off the front at the end. 6 to 10 seconds was a pretty common one. Let's take a look at these overall league standings. Over to you, Dave.
Dutch Diesel Cycling Xena with 98 points after 5 races, nearly perfect. ATV Racing Vespid 97, Altavelo in third right now with 90, 85 for Cadence, and then Plush with 64 points there for our women's bees. Taking a look at the men's as well as we'll wrap things up here on the Rivet Haze with 98 points. Oh my God, they killed Kenny, 92. And again, this is updated after today's racing on the Rivet Rush in third, Dirty Rascals Riot fourth. Tied, actually, for third, I should say, is Evo Sonic Boom with 74 points in fifth, Dirty Rascals Rampage sixth, Fred AF seventh, and Zeta SDE in eighth, Royal City West ninth, and then Momentum. That's your top 10 after 5 of 10 races. So, Kate, that's going to do it. Another great day of racing here as we get ready for what should be the toughest race of the season coming up next week. Tour of Two at Well. That one's going to be brutal. It's the World Championship course from Harrogate, reverse, and it's a beast, no doubt about it. That's followed by our team time trial. So we got a lot to look forward to the next couple of weeks. Good to be back with you, Kate Bates.
We do, likewise, Dave. And it seems like every time they head to the UK, there are absolute fireworks. We saw it toward the end of last season when they headed around the Surrey Hills. And a lot of people, I feel like, will viscerally remember that for the rest of their Zwifting days. Awesome job, everybody. Head over to WTRL.racing to check out all of the results. And, of course, if you have joined us, make sure you hit the like button, the follow button, to keep following and supporting Zwift Community Live. In the background, Nathan and Martin, thank you very much. And Dave, go and get some sleep, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, buddy.